What happens when a stepdad forgets the role he chose? I had my daughter Sarah when I was in college. My then boyfriend and I got married under pressure from both our families, but it didn't last long. Tragically, my husband passed away from a hidden heart condition a week after Sarah's second birthday. It was devastating. I spiraled into depression, but Sarah was my reason to keep going. 4 years later, I met Robert on a blind date set up by a friend. We clicked immediately. He met Sarah early on, and from the beginning, he was hands-on, kind, and genuinely cared for her. She started calling him Papa before we even got married, and when I gave birth to our twins 2 years later, Robert continued to treat Sarah like his own. She was always included in family gatherings, traditions, and even the cousin photo shoot his side of the family does every Christmas. But things shifted when Sarah turned 18. Out of the blue, she stopped calling Robert Papa and started using his first name. We were both caught off guard. Robert shrugged it off, but the change stuck. She was distant with him. Eventually, I asked if we could sit down and talk, and Sarah agreed to include Robert. That's when the truth came out. She had overheard Robert talking to a friend about a Father's Day trip. The friend asked if he was including Sarah, and Robert said no, that he planned the trip just for his real children. And since Sarah wasn't his real daughter, it wouldn't make sense for her to go. Sarah had always known Robert wasn't her biological dad, but to her, he was her father. That comment shattered something inside her. She felt hurt and betrayed. When Robert tried to explain that he still loved her, but that it was different because the twins were his real kids, she shut him down and asked us both to leave her room. That happened right before she left for college abroad. Since then, she's acted normal during visits, but she's never called him Papa again. She treats him politely, but distantly. Fast forward a few years, and Sarah got engaged to her longtime boyfriend. We were overjoyed for her. A couple weeks before the wedding, we were talking about the ceremony, and the topic of who would walk her down the aisle came up. I assumed it would be Robert. Sarah scoffed and said, "I thought it was obvious. Uncle Greg will walk me down the aisle. Besides, I'm not Robert's real daughter. It wouldn't make sense if he did it." I didn't argue. I simply apologized for assuming and said I'd speak to Robert about it. When I told him, he was furious. He insisted it had been years ago and Sarah needed to move on. I reminded him, calmly, that he was the one who first drew the line between real and not real. He got teary and asked me not to speak to him. He still came to the wedding. He sat quietly, looked somber, and kept to himself. He hasn't been the same since. It's been a week now, and while he still talks to me about the twins and household matters, everything else is a cold wall. He won't talk about Sarah. He won't talk about the wedding. He won't talk about how he feels. And honestly, I do feel bad. Not because I told Sarah the truth. She had every right to decide who walked her down the aisle, but because I think Robert is sitting in the very bed he made for himself and realizing far too late what he lost. I don't plan to tell Sarah any of this. She doesn't need the guilt, but it's hard pretending everything is fine when my husband is barely speaking to me, and I know exactly why.